And welcome to Impact 2024, our continuing conversation where we talk about all different types of topics, current events, where we talk about what's in the news. I guess that technically is current events. We talk about race, we talk about religion, we talk about everything that you want to talk about, politics a little bit, everything that you want to talk about. This is that safe place for that conversation from a Christian slant. And as always, we invite you to participate in that conversation. Participate by you typing your questions and your comments into the comment section, as you can see here, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or just watching it on the, participating on the internet. Uh, you can put in those comments in the comment section. All right. One thing that I like to get to before we start is the offerings that we have here at Amani Christian Ministries. On Thursdays, we have our Bible study that you can participate in, Thursday Thirst. On Sundays, we have our, we have our worship service that you can participate in. That's at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here on Facebook and YouTube. And then also on Tuesdays, today, at 7 o'clock, we have prayer. And you can join us by praying from 7 to 7:45. You can pray at any time between that time period, not the whole time. And join us in prayer as we pray together. All right, I'm going to jump right into it. Let me tell you right now, this won't be a long one today. So if you miss it, it'll be, you're going to miss it. And this may be a little bit controversial. So again, feel free to type your comments and your questions in. So let's hop right to it. If you have seen what has currently been going on in the news, you would know that in Israel, they just found 6 more hostages. Israeli hostages. So we have the Gaza conflict in Israel between Israel and Palestine, or Israel and Hamas, depending on how you want to, which way you think of it. And right now, what has happened over the time, 40,000 people have been killed. Over 40,000 people have been killed by Israel as a response to last October when 1,200 people were killed by Hamas. And so there's been an ongoing conflict. Some people call it the Israel-Hamas war, the war in Gaza, depending on how you look at it. And it's been ongoing. It's almost a year. Again, it started in October of last year, and we're coming up on that time. And what recently happened is that 6 of the hostages, there's over 200 some hostages that were taken. 6 of them were found. Unfortunately, they were found deceased. They were shot in close range. So they assumed that in the last week or so, they shot these people. And as a result, there's been a lot of protesting over in Israel, and there's been a lot of protest and a lot of concern here in the United States as well. What is going on in Israel has guided a lot of people's thoughts. It's guided how they decided how they're going to vote. If this politician is doing this, I'm voting this way. If this politician is doing that, then I'm voting this way. A lot of people have demanded that the United States takes a stance against what Israel is doing, because they have, again, they've been responsible for over 40,000 deaths. And so people have demanded that the United States takes a stand. They have demanded that the president takes a stand, or the presidential candidates, Harris and Trump, take a stand. And they demanded it one way or the other. Some people are significantly pro-Israel, like do whatever you got to do, to Hamas. And then some people are pro-Hamas and saying, look, Israel has been doing such bad things for so long. And then some people are just pro-peace. We need to stop all of the violence down there. We've talked about this many times. You've talked about this many times, probably with friends and family and who else. That's not what we're talking about in the grand scheme of things. What the question is, why is this such a big deal? Why is this such a big deal to you? This is Israel. This is the Middle East. This is very far away from here. Why is this such a big deal? And you're like, well, because there's atrocities going on. Over 40,000 people have died. And so this is a huge deal. This is a big thing, and we need to make sure that we pay attention to it, and we need to speak to it. But I'll ask you, I don't know what the relationship is directly with what directly the relationship with Israel that so many people, or the connection that so many people have. And I'll say this, and this is why I said it at the beginning, it might be a little controversial. For somebody like me, all right, I'm not Jewish, so I don't really have that Israeli connection. I'm not Muslim, so I really don't have the Palestinian connection. Yes, Israel has a lot of places that were listed in the Bible, Jerusalem and some other places, but there are other places in other biblical locations as well. So what is the big draw? And they don't look like me, and that's one of the other things. However, in the Democratic Republic of Congo right now, there is a conflict, an ethnic conflict going on between two groups, and over 550,000 people have been displaced. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's asking that the United States makes a big declaration on that. Nobody is saying that, depending on how this presidential candidate and this presidential candidate thinks about the people in the Democratic Republic of Congo, that's how I'm going to vote. And when I look at those people, they look like me. And so for me, it's like, how come that's not important to me? And then you would go down to South Sudan, and you would see that there's also been an ongoing civil war there. And in that, more than 40,000 people have passed away, and people have been displaced. But yet, I'm not asking the United States to make a declaration in that. I'm not asking Joe Biden to do anything in that, or Harris to do anything in that, or Trump to do anything in that. So why is that? In the Central African Republic, there's also a civil war going on where people are being displaced. And this is a huge one because Russia has sent some of their contracting people over there to participate in the conflict and keep it going. It's been going on for over a year. Well, again, with atrocities going on throughout the whole entire area. And these atrocities have been going on, and this is a big one that's been going on since 2013. So you have the Civil War part that's been going on for a year, but the atrocities have been going on since 2013. And then you have Russia participating in the process. But yet nobody here in the United States, for the most part, not nobody, but nobody of that has a notable voice is sitting back saying, well, what is your position on these conflicts in Africa? What are your positions in the Sudan? What are your positions in the Central African Republic? What is your positions on the Democratic Republic of Congo? What are your positions there? And these places are not that far away from Israel, not that far away from Palestine, not that far away from Gaza. Why is it that Gaza and Israel and the Palestinian conflict is so important to us and really kind of guides where we're thinking in our thought process, to the point where we need to have some kind of participation in the process and say, well, we need to do this or we need to do that. But, and this is for people who are like me, people who look like me, people who are from where my DNA is from, I don't even pay attention to what's going on and what conflicts are going on there. I don't care what Harris is thinking about those places. I don't care what Trump is thinking about those places. I don't care what Biden is thinking about those places. Why? Why is that? Why is this place so important and this place isn't? Why is it then after the Israel conflict, then Ukraine comes into play? And that's important. And we want to know, we're funding Ukraine and what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. And all of these things are tragic. I'm not ranking them or belittling them or any kind of thing such as that. Every one of them is tragic. But why is it that the ones that are happening in Africa get no play? But as people of color, and I'm speaking specifically to me and other people of color, how come we're so interested in these other conflicts, but we have no interest in what's going on in Africa? We're making declarations in these other conflicts, but are making no declarations in the ones that go on in the country where, again, we are from, down the line, we are from. I'll tell you what I think. It's because these are the ones you're told about. You've been told about Israel. That's the one that's on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and whatever else news you look at. You've been told about Ukraine. It's a big deal. It's on TV. It's in your face. And you look at it and you say, well, we need to take a stand and we need to do this and we need to do that. The other ones aren't. Unless you're watching a different type of news show, the BBC, or you're watching, something on public broadcast, you're not really paying attention. You're not going to see these. And so whatever you're being fed is where your outrage comes from. And unfortunately, that can be called selective outrage. And unfortunately, you are mad about the things that they funnel towards you. We talk about that with the internet and kids sometimes when we talk about this social media, and your phone funnels to you what you want to see, so you only get to see those certain things and you're oblivious to the other stuff that's going on. But as much as I got, and that's what it looks like. And so as much as we gave people a hard time in 2020, talk about police violence, and there's so many folks like, oh my God, I didn't know. I was oblivious to what was going on. And people who look like me were sitting back here saying, dude, you didn't know the whole time we're sitting here complaining and crying out for help, and we're saying that the police does this and police does that. We've been doing this for decades, and you're saying you didn't know? That's on you. It's the same way people in Africa or people in the other countries could sit back and be like, this is ridiculous. The United States is making a big fit and a big funk over Israel, a big fit and a big funk over Ukraine. But they're not saying anything about what's going on in these African countries. And in places where we would have much, much more influence. Am I telling you to not be involved in Israel and not be involved in Ukraine and not have opinions? Absolutely not. But I will say that I think if you're going to be, if we're going to be as people looking over into other countries and saying, all right, this needs to stop and we need to help here, then we also need to make sure that we're paying attention to more than just the situations that are being put in front of us. It would be horrific to sit back here and you protest for Israel and you protest for Ukraine, and atrocities in other countries with more death, atrocities in other countries with more people being displaced, were just ignored. And so you fought for the people who the TV tells you to, but the people who don't get the TV coverage, you just ignore, and you don't even have a thought about it or even, a concern about it. I think that would be wrong. And so I think what we need to do is pay attention to what is going on internationally. If we're going to take an international eye at what's going on in Israel, then I think we have an obligation to take an international eye at what's going on in some other places. And these are not the only other places, but I'm pointing out to Africa because at the end of the day, I'm a black man. As a black man, I would feel, I sit back and I feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes when I see other black men who are like me, who are going out here and they're talking so adamantly and fervently about what's going on in Israel and are not even aware of what's going on in Africa with our people. Comment. And again, I notice this is not this is not popular. This is not, because I'm calling out all of us, myself included. Like, we're not paying. I haven't been paying attention. I don't know what's going on. I believe that there are those who believe that Israel are the people of God. As such, a commitment to Israel is a commitment to God. As long as Israel is supported, God will be pleased. For some, it is a matter of faith. The fact of that Israel is strategically important. Yeah. Now let's keep it 100. There's a bunch of Christians who think that the Jewish people are the chosen people, and they are important today, as the comment was said. That they are an important group of people. They're important strategically. Those are God's people, and so we have to have a commitment to the Jewish people, to Israel. There are those who think that Israel is a strategic place. You have a stronghold of Muslim countries, many countries who have non-democratic forms of government, whether it be kings and a monarchy, whether it be dictatorships. You have other countries who have interests. You have China, who has a bunch of interests in a lot of countries down there. You have Russia. So the major world powers all have interests. So they think Israel is strategically placed, and it makes a lot of sense to stay involved in that. I don't disagree with either one of the points of it being strategic. When people who believe that it's strategic, whether it be from a military standpoint, economic standpoint, whatever, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with the people who, because the Jews were originally God's chosen people in the Bible, they feel like that there is importance there. I don't disagree with it at all. Either one of those folks. I don't totally agree with the points to the degree that some people are on board with it, but I don't disagree with it either. Um, but even if I feel that way, even if I feel that these people are important, as a black man, I feel like Africa is just as important. I feel like the people in Congo are important, and the people in Sudan are important, and the people, in the Central African Republic are important. I think that people all across the world are important. Um, if we're going to talk about atrocities, then we need to talk about atrocities. If we're going to demand that our presidential candidates have an opinion or position in one country, then I need them to have a position when it goes across the board about people. If you're going to talk about people who are being murdered, if you're going to talk about genocide, if you're going to talk about conflicts where one side has just have so much dominance over another and can just wipe folk out, then you need to just talk about that. And it shouldn't matter the color of the people, the religion of the people, the location of the people. None of that should matter. And so I believe that there is a responsibility. It is a strong responsibility about us to go out and be interested. And again, I this is a little bit racial for me because I can only talk about me. Honestly, I can only talk about me. I know why the TV and stuff. Again, because of that comment that was right there, it was the reason that the TV you're going to see it on all the major news networks here, and it's such a big important thing here, is because of the Christian population here in the United States who identifies with Israel. That's the Holy Land. That's God's chosen people. That's Jerusalem. That's Hebrew. That's woo. And so they're so interested in that. But for somebody who looks like me, somebody whose ancestors came from Africa, I think that I should have that same energy for people in Africa. And that is hard to do. It's difficult to do because you're not going to see them on TV all the time. You can't just turn on the TV and think, or go on Yahoo or MSN, and then boom, a story's going to pop up about them, unless you're doing the research, unless you create your algorithm to keep your eye on what's going on in Africa, or keep your eye on what's going on in South America, or keep your eye on what's going on in India, because in all of those places they're having conflicts like that. But unless you're keeping your eye to these other places, you're not going to know what's going on. But as a black man, I think I have a responsibility to keep my eye on what's going on in Russia, in Africa. I'm sorry, and making sure that those topics of conversations are still going to be there. Shoot, there is no reason why Harris, a black woman, it doesn't have that top of mind. Not saying that she doesn't, and I know that that's not going to be a big election campaigning winner. But when you get there, look, I know that these countries in Africa, it's messy. But if you're going to sit here and you're going to try to get in the middle of the mess in Israel, you better get your butt in the middle of the mess in Africa, because those people look like you. And I would imagine that any Indian American is sitting there keeping their eye on the pulse of what's going on in India. And somebody from South America is keeping their eye on the pulse of what's going on down in the different places in Venezuela and Colombia. And okay. And so I think all of us, regardless of race, regardless of color, regardless of whatever, we need to keep our eye on more than just what is going on in two select places of Ukraine and Israel. If we're totally honest, most people don't really care about Israel, Palestine, Ukrainians, Africans, Hispanics. They care about themselves and their situation. And that's true. And what's so, and in some places I can respect a little bit of that. If the people who sit back and be like, well, look, man, look what's going on right here. I need to stay focused on what's going on right here. I can respect that more than the selective outrage of deciding, all right, Israel, Palestinians, Ukrainians, Africans, Hispanics, let me pick one and then get mad about that. And that's what I think is unfortunate. I don't like the fact that the people in other countries are being ignored. That one of these groups or two of these groups are the important groups and everybody else is just an afterthought or a side thought. I don't like that it looks like that based on the color of your skin is whether or not we're concerned about the conflict. I don't like that it looks like based on the words that come out of your mouth, which language you speak, is whether or not we're going to be concerned about the conflict. And I think it's our responsibility. Again, it's not for me. It's not fair to my people, my brothers and sisters in Africa. It is not fair for us as people of color, if you are a person of color, to sit back here and make a big statement and stand firm for Israel and then ignore our own vote. I don't think that that's fair. I don't think that that's right. And I don't think that you should do that. I think that if you are going to stand firm for Israel, and you should, and that should be your thing, then you have a responsibility to stand firm for others as well. Yep. That's one that people are not going to like. And because there's a lot of implications there. Again, and, a lot of religious implications, racial implications for why we think that certain groups should get our attention, get our eyes, get our money, get our time, get our protests, get our words, and others don't. And so there's a lot of implications there. And I'm calling out, in a sense, I'm calling you out, I'm calling me out. Because we're the same. I have not paid attention to what's going on, and I have not pushed these other places or kept them at the top of my mind. And so I haven't been doing what's right, but most of us haven't been doing what's right. And it's not necessarily your fault in the sense of you don't control what comes on the TV. You can only be mad about what you know about. But now that you know, we all need to do better. All right. Well, that's it. Told you it was going to be a little bit quick. Wasn't as quick as I thought. But, it was important. So think about that. Marinate on that. And if I'm wrong, let me know I'm wrong. Put those comments in there. Even though we're wrapping up, put those comments in there. Tell me, look, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. What's important is Israel and da, 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 da. It's so strategically important, and that's our partner and blah, blah, blah. We're not partners with these other countries and things like that. That's a whole other issue. How come they are friends? But these wonderful people in Africa are not our friends. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Because this is a tough one. All right. Just want to remind everybody as we talked at the beginning, we talk at the end. On Thursday, we have Thursday, our weekly Bible study. And so I think that's super important because that puts some color into play as far as what's going on biblically with some of these places. You will get a history lesson as you come to a Bible study as well. Sunday, worship service from 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Facebook, YouTube. Please join us. Please join us. And also on Tuesdays, this is very important. Tuesdays between 7 and 7:45 that you pray. Prayer is significant. It's a responsibility of us all. Get you closer to God and closer to understanding of when you're praying with us. And so that's what we have. We have one more comment, and I'm going to get to it before we go because I don't want to miss it. As children of God, our concern should be for all of God's creation. However, we live in a society that tells us to be self-centered. Absolutely. Absolutely. We are only concerned about things that affect us. And so at the end of the day, even some of the people who are concerned about Israel is out of their own selfish concern. Oh, well, that's the Christian group, so I'm only going to care about them. Well, not the Christian group, but they're in the birthplace of Christ. That's Jerusalem. It's Israel. Those are the places in the Bible. And so selfishly, you're interested in that. Or if you don't like Israel, and selfishly, you're interested in that. Or if you are from Europe or your family's from Europe, you're selfishly interested in Ukraine. I'm sitting here talking about how I'm selfishly interested in Africa. But the reality of the matter is we can't be that self-centered, and we have to kind of pull ourselves out of that. And I'm saying it to myself. I have to pull myself out of that. We can't be like that, I believe. So that's a great comment. That's what it comes down to. And whether it be they're self-centered because of those issues or because of that one big issue that drives so many of our decisions, which is money. Strategically money. And don't forget that there's plenty of people who are selfishly looking at it on the opposite side. They love war because they sell guns, they sell bullets, they sell tanks, or they sell help. Don't think that these hospitals and other things don't like war. Like don't get it misconstrued. And I think it's all of our responsibility. Let's let's all stay focused on what we have going on here in our community. But let's not forget that God made everybody and everything is our community. And so, keep a little bit of eye on everybody else as well. You got a little bit of time. You ain't got all the time in the world to be focusing on what's going on across the pond, or across the lake, or the water, or whatever you want to call it. But let's give a little light to some other people. If you can do a little bit of something, or just bring it up. It would be great if in a debate, if at the debate we say, well, here's what's going on in Israel, but let me ask you about how you feel about these other countries and these other conflicts. That would be a wonderful moment, because I think it's important that everybody should get a little bit of, even if you can't do anything for me, at least let me know that you're looking at me and you can. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Next week, we'll be starting up back when it comes to having guests. So please feel free to join us. It's going to start rolling again with some other commentary and people here. I'm excited about what's going on as we stretch through the back half of the year, surprisingly enough. So we're gonna hit it hard. All right. Thank you for everybody who joined us. Thank you for all the comments. Have a good one. Join us again, and good night.